here is this whole realm of tools and skills that are denied to this boy, because
Yeah.
anything that has to do with emotions has been shamed, traumatized, and out of him. What do you think is going to happen when he's an adult and comes into a relationship challenge with his partner? There's an emotional event and he shuts down because the tools that he has are the tools that he had when he was 4 years old and nothing more, because nobody taught him how to do it. So this is really the synthesis of two areas of exploration for me that I'm bringing together. One of them is male gender socialization, and specifically the act like a man box, which is a concept many people are familiar with. I was first introduced to it in 1991 by Paul Kivel in his book Men's Work, How to Stop the Violence That Uproots Our Lives. I think that's the subtitle. But the idea of the act like a man box is it's an experiential exercise where I invite the group to brainstorm, how do you define a real man? And, we get a lot of overlap. I hear big, tall, strong, muscular, able-bodied, 25 to 45 years old, wealthy, car mechanic, firefighter, investment banker, right? So you're hearing some of the contradictions in this.
Right.
And also when it comes to sex, right? A real man, according to the stereotype, can always get it up, get it in, get it off. He's got a large penis. His female partner has lots of orgasms. If he does have sex with other men, he's the top, so he still holds on to masculine privilege. Right? There's a whole lot of stuff to unpack in this.
Yeah.
And then I draw a box around our brainstorm. And I ask the group to identify or share the names that men get called if we're not all of these things. And we've all heard these words. They all fall into three categories. I've been doing this exercise for 30 years, literally 30 years. And the words outside the box have always, literally without exception, fallen into one of three categories. Either you're gay, you're female, or you're a loser.
Mm.
And wuss means wimp and pussy, so there's a combination there, and but what this really says to me is that the bricks of the box are homophobia and misogyny, because if I want to be a real man, I can't be like them. And then shame is the mortar that holds it all together. And so here's where we get into the developmental trauma piece of it. Not universally, but easily 98% of boys in Western culture, usually, I just made up that number, by the way, 98%. Don't quote me on that. But, the vast, vast majority of men in this culture, in these cultures, when we're boys, around 3, 4, 5 years old, that's when we start hearing messages like, why are you crying? I thought you were a big boy,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is the seed that turns into man up.
Yeah.
Right. And what opened this up for me is that 3, 4, 5 years old, that's the ages when a lot of developmental traumas take place.
Mm.
So what I mean by developmental trauma, for folks who aren't familiar with it,
Yeah.
a shock trauma is a shock event, a car accident, a house fire, a physical or sexual assault. It's a specific event that's a shock to your system. And you can think of it as being too big, too much, too fast, or too soon. It overwhelms your nervous system.
Yeah.
That's a shock trauma. A developmental trauma is more like malnutrition. It's too little
Mhm.
for too long.
Yeah.
And the important piece is for too long because, as you know, Michelle, as a parent, right, you're never going to always be able to respond with compassion and attunement, right? You're going to have these moments. So it's not about being perfect, it's about being good enough.
Yeah.
And the developmental trauma means that here is a piece of this little boy's experience where it wasn't good enough for what he needed then.
Yeah.
Because what children need is, oh, you fell down and scraped your knee and now you're bleeding. That's ouchy. No wonder you're crying. Let's go put a Band-Aid on that.
Yeah.
And what we get is, don't be a wimp.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens then, two things that are very important happen here. One is, here is this whole realm of tools and skills that are denied to this boy. Because
Yeah.
anything that has to do with emotions has been shamed, traumatized, and abused out of him.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen when he's an adult and comes into a relationship challenge with his partner? And since the majority of people in the world are heterosexual, so we'll use, I'm going to assume that he's dating a woman here for that, because this shows up for men, for gay men as well, but it shows up differently there. So looking at heterosexual men and men who have sex with women specifically, what happens stereotypically is there's an emotional event and he shuts down
Yeah.
because the tools that he has are the tools that he had when he was 4 years old and nothing more, because nobody taught him how to do it.
Right.
So that's one piece, right? Is that he doesn't have the skills. But then the other piece that happens is when there's this deficit of skill and an event happens that touches on those pieces, we're more likely to go into trauma. Because if a shock trauma is described as it's too big, too much for you to be able to handle, if I'm a 40-year-old man and I get triggered into being my 4-year-old little boy again,
Yeah.
that's a trauma, or potentially a trauma.
Yeah.
And so we have these very common experiences where an event happens or there's a relationship conflict or some sort of emotional thing comes up, and he goes back and he reverts back to his 4-year-old self, but it's coming out through an adult body. And this is where it gets dangerous. And I will admit that I did some of these things too. In fact, some of the behaviors that led to my accountability process that I completed in 2023 were because of my version of this. And if you're interested, find it on my website. Um,
Yeah.
but so, for example, I'll talk about me because I think it's easier that way.
Yeah.
Even though I have a lot of emotional skills, I got triggered and I reverted into my little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are a child, it is perfectly appropriate to be angry at mom or dad and want them to soothe you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It is appropriate for a child to be angry at mommy for saying, no, you can't have a cookie, and then want mommy to soothe the anger that's there.
Right. Right.
Perfectly appropriate. I know a lot of couples who have really floundered on this because he comes to his partner with the vibe, the energy of, I hate you, please soothe me.
Mm. Yeah.
And the problem here is that for the person on the receiving side, more often a woman, but not always, but more often a woman, there's no way for her to experience that demand as anything other than entitlement.
Yeah.
Because I'm demanding that you take care of me.
Yeah.
But inside me, in that moment, I felt like a disempowered, victimized 3-year-old child who was now being abandoned by the person who I was brave enough to ask for help. And both of these realities are true.
Yeah.
But it's why in those moments I got really demanding, because my 3-year-old self was saying, no, you're supposed to take care of me. I deserve this. I'm entitled to this caretaking.
Yeah.
Because at 3 years old, that was true.
Right. So if somebody's watching this and they're like, I resonate with this story. Like this has happened to me.
Mhm.
So what are some like first steps someone could take if they completely identify with this situation?
Yeah, so this is a great question.
Did you know a lot of people watch our videos and they never subscribe? Hit subscribe before you watch the rest of this video.
It depends on who's asking.
Hmm.
If it's the guy who I'm talking with about this, we start looking at inner child work and let's identify the feelings here. And actually sometimes it's let's identify the sensations in the body, not the
Mm,
emotion, because emotions are scary and shameful.
yeah.
So it's I feel tightness in my chest and my face is really warm and I want to look away maybe is more accessible than saying, "Ooh, I'm noticing a shame feeling coming up."
Yeah.
I also do a lot of work with the breath because when we go into those crisis places, we go, and so we have to learn to come back out of that. And then we can start looking at problem solving.
Yeah,
What's
because there's so much. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, go ahead, because there's too much that pushes us to try to problem solve sooner.
Yeah. And I was just thinking too, there's so much dysregulation that goes on, like when something happens, like your heart starts beating really fast, and so many like physical things that you
Yeah.
need to work through before you can even mentally get to the point of like understanding your emotions.
And because even acknowledging that we have emotions puts us outside the box.
Hmm.
The only emotion that is inside the box is anger and happiness when your team wins the Super Bowl,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So learning how to make room for other emotions and name them, we really have to start at that very basic level. You know, when you're teaching a child colors, red, yellow, blue. I'm not worried about robin's egg blue and royal blue and navy blue and sky blue and like there's a million shades of blue.
Right.
You can learn those later. The first time I hear a man say, "Ooh, I'm feeling fear," I'm not asking him, is it anxiety? Is it panic? Is it terror? Is it worry? Is it anxiety? Is it concern?
Yeah.
Just, oh, yeah, you're feeling fear. Let's look
Mhm.
at this together. Right? We have to keep it real, real simple. Um, When I talk to partners of men about this, one of the most important things that I bring up for them, two really important things I bring up for them. One is especially for folks assigned female at birth, those child behaviors coming out in an adult body are terrifying.
Right.
You know,
Right.
when a child is angry and they throw their toy across the room, it's a stuffed animal, it's no
Yeah.
big deal. Maybe
Yeah.
it knocks a glass of water onto the floor.
Yeah.
I had a client once who, at last count, her husband had destroyed 8 iPhones because he would get triggered and throw his phone into the wall.
Wow.
And this is where it gets sticky, right? For the other people, that behavior is terrifying.
Yeah.
For him, he feels like a victim and he can't understand why people don't see it.
Mm,
And that was the crux of so many relationship problems.
yeah.
You know, I feel like a victim, so I'm going to attack you. Why don't you have compassion for how I feel like a victim?
Right. Right. That's so
You know?
complex.
And so a lot of the time what I tell partners is, you know what? And especially women, because I talk with a lot of women who have spent literally years trying to understand men.
Mm,
And sometimes what I tell them is, you know what? When this cycle kicks up, he's being irrational.
yeah.
And you are trying to make rational sense of a trigger which is never going to work because it is inherently irrational.
Hmm.
You know, if my brain is capable of being rational in that moment, then I'm not triggered, sort of by definition. So it's kind of like how do we learn to identify when the triggers are happening and then what will help you take care of yourself in that moment? And it might be saying, "Hey, I need to press pause here. Can we talk more in 20 minutes?" It
Mm,
might be saying, "Ooh, you know what? This is that cycle again. Maybe you should book a session with Charlie or talk to your AA sponsor or hang out with your friends, but like stop trying to get me to soothe you for your anger at me."
right.
you know. And sometimes I've honestly had plenty of conversations with folks about like recognizing that these cycles, if he is not willing to really dig in and look at them, then you get to choose. Are you going to tolerate this? Are you going to find a way to change how it impacts you? Or are you going to leave?
Yeah.
Because if he's not changing here, those are your options. And let's talk about what'll make sense. You get to decide that you're going to tolerate this. I will back you up on that. Let's look at the tools that will help you make that happen.
Yeah. So like in this example situation, do you primarily work with like the man in this situation or the couple together?
I love doing both,
Yeah.
actually. Actually, what I find works really well for this, as a coach, I can do some things that therapists don't get to do.
Yeah.
And so I've worked with couples where we've alternated weeks, where one week it's him one on one, and the next week it's the three of us. Um, that works really well because we can maintain some continuity. But
Yeah.
if somebody wants to work with me just one on one, I'm happy to do that. I do sometimes like to have a session with the partner though, and here's why. This is true for everybody in therapy or coaching, literally everybody, which is that your practitioner can only work with what you bring to them.
Mm, nice.
And if you tell me every single time, oh, my girlfriend, she's so mean to me. Every time I ask her for something, she says no. I don't have anything else to work with except your
Right.
story. But maybe your girlfriend would tell me that, like, oh, yeah, he always asks for support at like 11 o'clock at night when I'm getting ready for bed,
Yeah, you get
right?
more details. You can kind of fill in the blanks there, and it helps
Yeah,
you better understand what's really
exactly.
going on.
Exactly. And it's not about somebody lying or fudging the truth.
Right.
Everybody does this
Yeah.
because no, you can't see yourself without
Yeah.
a mirror.
Yeah.
So I'll do all of that. I will say though, the men who tend to work with me are the guys who already know they don't want to be in the act like a man box.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of that is that, they look at my webpage and there's a lot of emotion there. There's a lot of heart there. I also look pretty queer. So, people make assumptions about me. Um, and so the guys who want to just like suck it up and tell me how to fix this so that I can get an erection again, they tend not to seek me out
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
what I'm going to tell them is, let's figure out what's going on in your body and your heart, and then I bet your erection will probably start working again. And that's not as satisfying an answer to them yet.
It's not a quick fix either.
Uh, it's true. I'm not a fan of quick fixes. I don't think they sustain.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be focusing more on the developmental trauma piece
Hmm.
because I do feel like man up, people generally have a sense of that. But if that is new content for you, I can recommend Paul Kivel's book, Men's Work. And also, I only have one video up on YouTube, but it's from a conference I did a number of years before where I dig into the Act Like a Man box because there's a lot to unpack there. So it's my only YouTube video. Feel free to go find it because I won't be covering that at the Shaw conference because of time constraints. So a lot of what we're going to be looking at is more like, how does this developmental trauma show up in men's lives? When this boy grows up, knowing deep down in his cells, I cannot trust you with my emotions because you will shame me for them.
Yeah.
What do we do with that?
Yeah.
What do we do with partners who say, I want my husband to be more comfortable with emotions, but what they really mean is, I want him to be more comfortable with my emotions. I don't want to see any weakness in him.
Mm.
So how do we work with that?
Right. And I can
Oh,
only imagine the number of men who have this issue because I feel like until very recently, maybe the last like 5 to 10 years, like that was standard parenting,
yeah,
boys are boys. You have to toughen them up. They can't show any weakness or emotion or feeling. So I can imagine there's generations full
Oh,
of
it's
men.
huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. This is multi-generational, cultural, societal, familial trauma.
Yeah.
Because it's this developmental trauma. Well, and that's a great example, actually, because one of the ways developmental trauma works is if I'm not allowed to access my feelings, and then I see a boy, particularly my son, but any boy who's having feelings, that stirs up all of my stuff. And either I have to address how I feel, or I have to control him.
Yeah.
That's how triggers work.
Hmm.
So it becomes this real interesting thing because a lot of people say, I don't want to do that to my kid,
Right.
but they don't know how not to because they
Right.
have to do their own stuff. So for this, it's really going to be focused for coaches and therapists, people who see clients
Mhm.
who are navigating these kinds of issues. But also, if it resonates with people on a personal level,
Yeah.
and if you have any men in your life, even if you are a 100% lesbian, if you have any men in your life, this will
Right.
probably resonate for you too.
Thanks for watching our video with Charlie Glickman. Do us a favor, share this with someone who might benefit from this information. Your support helps us reach more people with important sexual health information. If you are passionate about this space, we know you'll enjoy these videos, so check them out. Please like our video, subscribe to our channel, and remember, you are exceptional.